Jason, today's episode of the Lee Summit Town Hall podcast is brought to the good people by Budget Blinds of Lee Summit.
Budget Blinds!
I don't know if you knew this or not, but Budget Blinds have some of the best people in our community.
They are, and we have said this before, they are very much good eggs.
That they are always doing things to help out the community but wait, there's more.
Ooh, what else are they doing?
They are the home of the Signature Series shades. So when you're ready to make your home a smart home, this is the place you need to go to.
You're going to call Budget Blinds and you're going to say, all hail my robot shade overlords. And they're going to know what you need and they're going to hook you up with Signature Series shades.
So when you're ready to make that decision, head on over to our friends at Budget Blinds of Lee Summit, right in the heart of downtown. Tell them Jason and Nick sent you. Hello and welcome to this Friday episode of the Lee Summit Town Hall podcast. Jason, you're back for another Friday. I don't know how you keep doing this to me. This is like the worst part of COVID.
Well, you know, look.
Going up for my Friday interviews.
It is. I have a little bit more unscheduled time, and so this is what you get for it, is me showing up at your porch, or at least your virtual porch every day.
I hate sharing. I am happy, though, that we have now a repeat guest, the new superintendent for Lee Summit R7 School District, Dr. David Buck. Welcome back.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Jason. Glad to be here.
This was supposed to be our first introductory interview with you, but as all things lately, because COVID,
we're doing our first interview second.
Right. We got to have you on a couple weeks ago, which thank you very much for coming on with Board of Education President Ryan Murdoch to discuss what was then the announcing of the reopening of schools plan, and we promised not to bug you too much about that this time around, and mostly because I know everything is fluid, and since we were recording this a week before it's actually going to post, I'm not going to make you say things that might change. So we will keep that in mind. Really what we want to do this time, Dr. Buck, is we'd like to get to know you, and we'd like for the community a chance to get to know who you are and why you were excited to come to our community, and eventually we'll get to a little bit of maybe your vision, what you see this district can become while you're at the helm. So here's my first really difficult question. Why the heck did you apply for this job?
Oh, you're kidding me. Lee Summit is well known across the Midwest as a satellite district. It's known for innovation, high performance. It's an exciting district. So why not? I don't know why 5,000 people didn't apply for the job.
Well, look, even if I had applied, I don't think I'd have made much farther into the candidate pool. I lack, what is that thing they call, Nick? Oh, yeah, qualifications or skills. That's the ones that we have
That's why we yell into microphones and not responsible for the education of future generations.
Absolutely. So, Dr. Buck, you are coming from a district that had something on the order of 1,500 students, and literally it's an order of magnitude larger in terms of just student population, but, you know, skipping staff and all the facilities and all the things that go along with it. What do you think the challenges are for you as you make that kind of a transition? Obviously any new superintendent or administrator that moves from one district to another, every district is different, but that seems to be sort of the big sort of, it's a glaring difference between our district and your former place.
So I'll answer that several ways. First of all, Missouri's got 518 districts, mostly are small districts. So if I look at it, where I'm leaving is bigger than 80% of the districts in the state of Missouri. So believe it or not, top 20%. Lee Summit's top 10%, top 5%, right? It's one of the biggest in the state. I think the scale actually is what was exciting. After being an administrator for 19 years, having that larger reach is a very exciting piece. I've been a principal of a building of over 1,000 kids for many years. You know, I've been in large buildings before as a high school principal. So that's been fine. You know, I think what the harder transition, to be honest with you, is because of COVID. After being at the same desk for 12 years, the health department executive has been a personal friend of mine there for 15 years. I could call her up. The police chiefs of multiple cities that I served and the county sheriffs, they're personal friends of mine because I've known them forever. The connections there were really deep. And so moving over, obviously it's kind of hard wearing masks to go and people aren't in their office, like you guys are not in your offices right now. It's kind of hard to go and make those relationships and on the fly when we're making decisions here, daily. And so I think that's the bigger transition piece. You're right, 7 buildings to 29 buildings. There's a difference there. Demographic wise, very similar, 22% minority versus 25% minority. Some of the challenges I had there are probably greater. 56% free and reduced lunch when I first got there. We got it down to upper 30s by working hard with the EDC. Here, it's 22% free and reduced lunch. I was at 6 to 7% ELL. Here, we're 2% ELL. I had 112 kids homeless the last data point I had. I think it's the exact same number that Lee Summit had was homeless, 112 kids. It was the exact same number, even though it's 10 times bigger. One of my national mentors is a guy named Jack Dale. He was superintendent of Montgomery County, Maryland school district. They had 180,000 students. And Jack, I remember, came and visited me in Wright City, maybe 4 years ago, spent time with me in Wright City. I said, Jack, what are you going to tell me? You have, 100 times more students than I have. And he goes, just add 2 zeros and we do the same thing. I know it's more complicated than that, but I think, schools are schools and innovation's innovation, and removing barriers. It's the same kind of conversations everywhere.
I want to, before we dig into some of those things, that's interesting. I want to go back to something you said though about the challenge. So I'm just curious about that. When you are a superintendent of schools, what kind of things are you looking for to challenge yourself? Because everybody wants to grow and take on a new challenge. But what are you looking as the leader of school districts? What were you looking for that says, I need a new challenge. I want something to grow into.
So one of the people I look up to a lot is a guy named David Schuler, superintendent in the Chicago area. He instilled in me a long, long time ago that, hey, if you go make a move, you need to make it for at least 7 years, because it's easy to go into a position and stir it up. It's harder to make change and help maintain and be flexible and tweak as you go along. And I'm 47, probably have about 8 years left. And so I either had to decide, hey, do I want to stay where I'm comfortable, or do I want a new challenge? And, I also have kids of a certain age, and, I move now, or otherwise I'm in the graduation cycle and it's harder to move the kid your senior year kind of thing. So I think those were all pieces of what made me start to think about looking. And when I decided to make it, that decision to looked at a couple different spots. They were all large districts looking for a bigger reach and a learning experience for me. It's an exciting team here. It's a wonderful team here. I'm amazed by the talent here. And so, that part of the challenge is what attracted me to it. And, be honest with you, the district's a fantastic district. It's a great place to raise my own kids. So I'm excited for that as well.
Well, let's talk about those challenges and what you just said about come in and make some changes and then stick around long enough to try to follow through and make those sustainable changes. You talked about removing barriers, about access, and that's a conversation we've had in this district for a few years now. Sometimes very, very uncomfortably, and we won't beat around the bush. Your predecessor, there was a lot of trouble around the district between your predecessor and the community and the school board. So how do you come in and tackle some of those things and keep that conversation about removing barriers, about access as you come in here?
It's the right conversation to have. And be honest with you, every district should be having it. I think a lot of districts are having it for the first time right now. I think Lee Summit was ahead of the game on that. And I think where I came from was way ahead of the game on that. We looked at what research says and then looked at data and see if there's discrepancies between our demographics. So I'll give you a few examples. I'll give you a non-academic one first. Research says that if to a high correlate to a successful career is you participate in 2 or more co or extracurricular activities in high school. The idea is that if I'm in the band or I'm on the offensive line, I have an employer, the coach or the band director. I have ability to set individual goals, but they better be congruent with my boss's goals. I have interdependence on my success based on the person next to me, and their success is interdependent on mine. My ability to deal with many failures and successes along the way towards a long-term goal. Those are all what employers want. So there's a lot of research behind that. And so we looked at our demographics where I came from, and we found that our children who were Hispanic, our children who were on free or reduced lunch, and our children who had an IEP were underrepresented. So then we made programming changes. We added things based on what they desired. And then we tried to build a culture. We tried to remove financial barriers, and we got our demographics to match. In fact, we went all the way down to second grade to build in a lot of different pieces where we end up having 70% of our second through fifth graders participate in before after school activities. That way it was just a culture piece that, hey, this is what we do. And then when we got to high school, it was a bigger piece of their lives.
So Dr. Buck,
it's good for all.
Good. No, I thank you. That's I think that lends right into kind of where we were wanting to kind of aim anyway. So as you come into the district, obviously you are aware of the conversation. I think the catch-all word we have used is equity. But that conversation and looking at where those discrepancies are and what have you. So where do you see, coming in from the outside, coming in with trying to done that work at your prior position, where do you see the areas where the district has the most room to grow to achieve that goal?
I'm going to answer that in two different ways. One will be, there's a general conversation in our society about awareness and understanding and how to move forward as we understand each other better. And I've seen that previously with children of autism and other different subgroups. And, we're seeing that now around race. And so we've doubled down on our equity plan. So the equity plan was approved in early 2019, but actually it was a board priority back to 2018. And so it's a standalone board of priority as of this summer. The board elevated, so they have 3 board priorities. That's one of the 3. And then I requested that we double down on what we're spending on the plan so we could reach more people. So I inherited they were spending about $100,000 on equity training. We're going to add another $112,000 to that, and go into things like microaggression and how to react and what to look for and what to do. So I think that's important. That's a whole society's wrestling with that, right? I think another part of that would be on hiring practices. And so we, actually, when I looked at the data, I'm pretty excited about the last 3 years of data. We've averaged over 10% of our hires being people of color. We want our staff to be representative of our population. Most districts could not say the last 3 years they averaged over 10% of their hires.
Well, I'm gonna jump in right there. One point of criticism has been that right now, as of now, there is not a person of color in the top level of administration on that admin team for the school district. Is that something that needs to be looked at?
So obviously you're going to still hire the best candidate when you have a pool, right? But we need to encourage people to apply, encourage people to follow the track, encourage people to get into the profession. So one of the things we're going to look at is, because if I look at assistant principals, I think we're around, I don't have it in front of me, 15% of our assistant principals are people of color, something like that. So we want to keep pushing towards the pipeline so that way that is an easy choice, right? When we look at Ann Arbor, Michigan, they've been doing a grow your own program for a long time. Columbia School District started one last year. We're going to start looking at that hard. Jeremy Bonison over there at MIC STA is jumping on with that, and we're going to look at how can we support kids to want to choose the profession and then support them going through college in return for their coming back to teach for us. So we're going to continue to do that. Then I'm going to look at student level stuff. So your student level data. Look for discrepancies, where there's a need at. So, for example, I looked at gifted data the other day. We average about 14% of our kids year in, year out, and gifted are people of color. And that's higher than vast majority of districts in the state, but it's still not 25% what our population is. Well, so then let's start digging into how do we come to our selection process for gifted? Well, we use the method that a lot of districts use, where it's a recommendation to be tested and then they give an IQ test. Well, that's not the only way you can have selection. The director of gifted at DESE is a dear friend of mine, been in a book club with her for the last 15 years, I've known her husband for 20 years. She'll tell you the IQ test is not the only way and maybe not the best way. If you talk to the superintendent of Philadelphia, Bill Hyde, he's got 205,000 students. He went away from the IQ test selection. So we're going to look at what kind of universal screeners can we do? If you go to sometimes you have a nonverbal IQ that helps you with your language. People who have different languages spoken home, 18%. We have 18 different languages spoken here at Lee Summit. The IQ test, while you might have a kid that sounds like they converse very well with you, they still might not have a deep understanding of language as other kids, because at home they have a different language spoken at home. So using an IQ test that's very language driven can be a problematic piece. So what about creativity IQ, things like that? So we're going to look at universal screeners. I'd say the same thing. I'm going to dig into AP. I'm going to dig into percent of kids that have Algebra 1 by 8th grade and see if there's discrepancies. That's one I found in my previous stop. We got up to 85% of our kids taking Algebra in 8th grade. And then when I looked at the 15% that didn't, it was mostly minority males. And we're starting tracking that in 5th grade, kind of choosing what math track you're going to be on. And it wasn't malicious or anything. But we said, hey, if it's good for all, it's good for all. So we got to where let's push. Let's get 100% of kids taking Algebra 1 in 8th grade. Now, there might be an IEP student or two that's not their goal for an IEP, but the vast majority of everyone else should be in there.
By the way, all that talk just scared me a little bit. That's too much algebra. I'm frightened. Jason's the math nerd.
Jason's the math nerd, and Jason's son is starting calculus this fall, so I'm going to have to dig deep to get back into that to try to help him at any point that he needs that going forward. But so Dr. Buck, let's talk about this. We've had I know there was so much conversation around EEC and their hiring and all of that, and then it really went dark. And I don't think this is necessarily in a bad way, but it was really quiet. All the work was done internally in the administration and teachers and all the process where this first year of training. And you guys have, you as you said, you've committed to doubling down on the funding for this work that you're doing. But let's talk about you personally, or the board. Though I think you're much better to speak for you than the members of the Board of Education.
I appreciate that.
How do you? You are going to engage in this work, and you probably have engaged in this work. How do you intend to, and I think one of the things that was a frustration for Nick and I, as we kind of followed along and have been trying to kind of keep up with what's happening and how's it working, is there has been very little output from district leadership, whether that be from administration or the board or what have you. I think the most we really heard about the last year's work is in the candidate interview we did with board member Fritchie, as she was talking about some of the impact that the work has had on her. How do you intend to not only obviously engage in the work, but sort of communicate what that means and how it has changed the way you do your job for the public?
So, Jason, I'm a data-driven guy. I love data. I think data tells a great message, with equity training, a lot of it is about awareness and growth mindset. And there's not going to be hard data on that as far as that part of it's concerned. But I will tell you that when they do follow up those metrics for everyone they think the training was effective and helped them grow as a person, the metrics have been through the roof positive after every session for EEC. But I don't think that's when you have 20 people talking about tough conversations, I can't measure a metric of are you more aware or not. There's not a way I can measure that, but I can tell you everyone's really, really appreciating the conversations. We had a ton of people want to sign up. That's why we doubled down, because we had more people wanting training than we had seats. We're still using EEC, and we also were using another group called Lively Paradox, if I'm saying the name correctly. I don't have it in front of me, so maybe I messed that up, because EEC couldn't meet when we doubled down, meet some of the things we wanted to do.
So I guess I want to follow that through, but I think that there's a piece to this, that there's a personalization part of it that I think is important from a leadership thing, and that's kind of where I was trying to get at is that this. Whether you have done this work in the past and you can speak to how it changed the way you viewed things, or as you go through it this round, you can kind of speak to what you learn and what have you. Do you intend to do that? And I think that that's one of the things that I think people on the outside who are either skeptical or don't understand what it is the district is trying to achieve, to help them understand the impacts it has on a day-to-day basis. And obviously you are like it or not, the face of the district and kind of that public front of things. That's where I'm trying to get is like, do you have maybe even already some experience with that you can relate, or is that something that I mean, I know you said you're data driven, but sometimes a little touchy feely story goes a long way to get across what data might miss.
You bet. And I totally understand that. We for a long time had my wife and I had an outreach program for inner city youth in St. Louis, learning horsemanship. They'd learn tricks on horses, and some of them actually went on to be in Cirque du Soleil. Heck, there's one in WWE right now. But they were from broken homes and major obstacles in life. So it was an outreach program. It was year round. And I have those personal stories as well. There's no doubt about that. But I would just want to caution that the training isn't about, hey, let's go through a training and come out with a soundbite to come. It is becoming aware in each individual person of, hey, what is going on? What's other perspectives? And how can I help not make someone else feel less? Because I don't think anybody goes in education wanting to make anyone else feel less than because of whatever their demographic is. And that's true of any kid, but it definitely is true if you talk about, orientation or skin color or anything else. We don't need to make people feel less than because of something they were born with or born as.
How much, though, do you think is your role? And I will say this: by nature of the fact that they are elected officials, the board members of the Board of Education have more of a responsibility to report to the people and their constituents. But how much responsibility do you put on yourself, I guess, to keep that conversation in the public eye? And you're right. I understand what you're saying. The training isn't about coming out with sound bites to make everyone feel good.
Exactly.
But I would say the last 2 years, our community in particular, and every community is having these hard conversations right now, but has had a difficult time of having the conversation because I don't know that everyone completely understood what the goals were. And I think maybe that's true for some of the board members as well. So what level of responsibility do you put on yourself to try to keep those conversations in the public eye so that everyone understands what not only what the training is, but what the goal of the training is?
So you're 100% right. My job is a facilitator to a large degree. I'm asking a question and hosting a conversation. Margaret Wheatley said that's what leadership is, and I truly believe in in that. So that's what we're going to continue to do. We're going to keep having the conversation. It's the right conversation to have. It's not unique to here. It's not unique to if I talk in Springfield, they're having this conversation. If you talk in Blue Springs, they're having this conversation. If you talk in Webster Groves, they're having this conversation. So I think it's not unique here. We're going to continue to host a conversation. I think ranking responsibility or such, that doesn't serve anybody well. I'm going to be me. I can't be somebody I'm not, but I am going to keep having this conversation because it's the right conversation, because we're here to help kids grow up to become neighbors that you and I would be proud to call our neighbor. And so, that we need to make sure kids don't feel less than, and if they have access to education and they have hope and dreams that they can try to accomplish.
Well, let's shift a little bit then forward, and I'm going to ask this question not just for this specific topic, but for some other topics. What are some visions of success? Because we started this with it's easy to come in and shake things up, but it's a little harder to stay a few years longer and make sure the change is sustainable. So let's start with this particular topic. How you envision success and what that would be. Or that to let yourself know you're on the right path, and then we can talk about some other visions that you have for the district.
You bet. I'm gonna use data driven. So so I'll give you an example. One of the highest correlates for college, getting a college degree, finishing a college degree, is what grade you get in Algebra 2. All right. Now, not everyone's going to be college bound, but over 50% of the kids who go to college in the state of Missouri do not finish their degree. It's a lot of debt, and they don't have a good source of paying it off. So we want to make sure if a child chooses to go to college, they're successful. So even if you're an English major, the grade you get in Algebra 2 is the most highly correlated to whether you get a degree or not. So I want to look at what is our demographics of kids that get a B or higher in Algebra 2. And if it's discrepant against certain subgroups, then by golly, we need to do a job to address that. So success with me was every correlate I can find to be a successful adult, because that's the goal of education, is to help you become a successful adult, then we're going to try to find, if there's any kind of discrepancy, we're going to try to address it. That to me is the huge equity piece, because the outcome is we want adults that are productive citizens and can self-sustain themselves, and somebody you'd be proud to call your neighbor.
So I think that your talk about successful adults leads very naturally into, there has been in this district, and I presume all over, some shifts in the model that we're using. There was at one point it was a monolithic track for, aim everybody at college all the time. And we're starting to move away from a monolithic track and having more things out there. Yes. With STA and things of that nature. They can go, one of our students can go to the Herndon Center there in Raytown. There's in Cascade. There's lots of opportunities to do things that are not aimed at pushing someone towards a 4-year degree. How do you see the future of that, and what do you think success in trying to deal with that is? What looks like success for that transition, or where that transition's going?
So you're 100% right. First, I'll start off where I left. When we became only the 13th district to have a registered youth apprenticeship, we had a third of our certified staff doing a full day of externship every day, so that we were connected to the workforce. We did a profile of a graduate just like you guys did, and then we built in curricular experiences, elementary, middle school, and high school, so we can give chances of kids to develop proficiencies in what our profile was. So coming here to Lee Summit, there's also the profile of a graduate, and there's the Kaufman work piece. And the Kaufman work piece will look a little different this year than we all thought it would when we applied. But we did receive funding for the first year of that. But the idea is to move towards, we have career ed advisors at the high schools, helping connect kids for internships and get experiences. You're right. We have the path for Herndon and Cass and STA here. With the Kaufman work, we're starting to see some of the other, we have 31 high schools that send to the STA. We're seeing some of the high schools looking at maybe recreating little pieces of STA. They couldn't recreate the whole thing because it's pretty dynamic over there. And so we were like, hey, we need to evolve. So now we're looking at 8 different paths of aeronautics that takes every part of the plane industry, transportation, creating it, flying it, everything, and creating pathways through that. It's a huge need in our country. We have a huge turnover getting ready to happen. It's a very veteran group, if you will, in the nation. And so we want to be part of that. Plus, we have world leaders with that throughout the metro and each of those 8 areas. So we're going to keep trying to innovate and be part of that. But we're also going to try to help kids get the experiences they need. So you're 100% right. I'm just as proud as the kid who was last year. I had a kid. He was kind of struggling through school, being motivated, and he was into auto body. We got him a registered youth apprenticeship job at a car dealership doing auto body. He's getting paid $20 an hour. At the same time, he's getting credit, and yet he's going to become certified by age 19, where most people wouldn't be certified until probably 21, 22 or older. And he's going to have, probably drive a nice vehicle than I am. So there's I agree. There's not just one path. I think schools have recognized that for a long time. I think the Kaufman piece is going to really focus this entire metro area and us on that, and I'm excited to join on that.
Just real quick to clarify for everyone what that Kaufman program is.
So it's real world learning, and so it's looking at, they use an interesting term, and I kind of like it, value asset, market value asset. So what things are you getting before you leave here in graduation that helps you be marketable for college or for certain careers or certifications? So it's really secondary focused to a large degree. And so we then backed down and we said, hey, all right, so we're going to go with a RIASEC program, which is giving experiences and exposures to elementary kids. Because I can still recall having a conversation with the HR of Toyota maybe 3 years ago, and she made a claim, and she supposedly had research behind it, and I believe her, that girls will make their mind up by age 8 whether a hands-on field is possible or not. So, you ask a 6-year-old, everything's possible. Some reason around age 8, girls start having a set mindset of, is that possible or not? So we need to expose young kids to different fields, and they can do anything. So I think that's an important piece.
As you look at settling in, and we all admit that because COVID, you started your work in Lee Summit probably earlier than the typical July 1 contract did. But as you get settled in Lee Summit, and as you were looking to come here, were there a couple things that you were excited about sinking your teeth into?
Oh, I think the equity work is a huge thing I'm excited about. And I also, the talent here at the district is just immense. I mean, it really is. There's so many advantages that kids at Lee Summit have because of the talent here, the offerings here, and I'm excited to be part of that. And I have to, I know everybody wants to talk about the past, but I've been amazed at the board is, works well, and they're wrestling with the big topics incredibly well, and I've seen nothing but great things. So.
Okay, so now we're gonna get mean to you. So are we gonna follow your reopening plan exactly right? I'm gonna hold you to it.
To the letter, as it is this day, a week before it'll come out, or a week before you'll be there. No, just kidding. We know
you're going to ask about a Cardinal fan or Royals fan.
Well,
Look, that gets into religion. I'm not sure we're going to go there.
Yeah, and I'm afraid you might answer incorrectly, and then I'm going to have to be upset. I might cry. There's tears, all that. I am going to, though, as we wrap this up, I'm going to ask you a very important question.
The question.
This is the biggest question that we ask any guest that comes on.
No pressure.
It is a big debate. There is a right answer, and we will mock you if you're wrong. If I were to put in front of you two plates, one plate has burgers and one plate has tacos.
Burgers.
Which one?
See, there we go.
You know what? I could almost take you being a Cardinals fan before that.
Wow, that is big words, Nick Parker, right there. Well, I'm going to give you this small piece of credit, Dr. Buck. You did not equivocate. You did not try to politicize your answer. You didn't try to go halfway one way or another. You went and you picked your wrong. And if you're going to be wrong in this sort of a situation, be wrong strongly. And I think it's important in that regard. So I will give you that small piece of kudos, even though your answer was 100% incorrect.
Dr. Buck, welcome to Lee Summit, and again, thank you for coming on a second time for your introductory interview. We look forward to talking with you during your tenure, and seeing what you accomplish as you lead this school district. Thank you very much.
And good luck.
I appreciate you both. Thank you.
All right, we will talk to everybody next time. Hey, thank you, Dr. Buck. I appreciate it.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you very much. I'm sure this was much lighter and happier.